a manifesto promise. 2p on income tax is predicted, and loads more. Stay tuned after the weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a chilly start this morning, tonight will be milder. There will be some spells of rain though, and it is going to be rather windy across much of the country, particularly across Northern Ireland, where we'll start to see outbreaks of rain this afternoon, all down to low pressure, pushing in these frontal systems, so cloud, rain, and also some quite strong gusty winds. Where we have our weather warning issued for Northern Ireland, we could see wind speeds of between 50 to 60 miles per hour. It's going to be turning blustery for all though. This band of heavy rain shifts its way eastwards into the North Sea, turning a little drier for a time as we head closer towards dawn, though we can't rule out some showers lingering around for some. Nevertheless, though, it is going to be a milder start to the day, many towns and cities in the low double digits. So we'll see a mix of clouds, some clearer skies to start the day. There will be some showers quickly moving through though, particularly across the south, some heavy showers pushing up from the English Channel there. Some of these could be quite heavy, and it is going to be quite blustery, particularly around any western coast. But for Northern Ireland, it is going to be a much brighter start than what we saw this morning. And similar across parts of Scotland, a mix of clouds, some clearer skies towards the north, though we can't rule out a risk of showers. And that is the theme through much of the day, though some of these showers could be quite heavy. Some bring some quite intense downpours, particularly this area into the west as we head towards the afternoon. Some strong blustery winds and some heavy bands of rain. This could bring in some hail and thunder. And it is going to be quite a blustery day for all, but with the slightly blustery weather, that does bring in some milder air, so highs reaching around 16 to 17 degrees Celsius in the south. Through into the evening, for any trick-or-treaters that might be out and about, there'll be once again a mix of some drier spells and also some showers. These showers turning to quite an intense band of rain across parts of the southwest through the course of the evening. And as we progress into the weekend, the showery theme continues, though it should start to feel a little bit milder from Monday onwards.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for sharing over 5 million comments on your sale. Because when you talk, we listen.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M80 faces northbound congestion at junction 4A. Motorists westbound on the M4 between junction 24 Coldra and junction 26 Malpas will encounter heavy traffic. The A31 eastbound in Dorset between the A347 and the A338 junction has 15-minute delays. The M25 clockwise between junctions 29 and 30 in Thurrock has 20-minute delays, while the M25 anti-clockwise from junction 10 to 9 in Surrey is closed due to an overturned vehicle. On the trains, Gatwick Express has no service between London, Victoria and Brighton, and Cross Country reports disruptions between Peterborough and Ely. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you can become our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps 4, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dewbs and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening and welcome to Dewbs and Co. It's 6 o'clock. It's with me, Nana Akwe. I'm in for Michelle Dewberry. The plot thickens in Rachel Reeves' renting fiasco as the estate agents have now apologised for an oversight. And it goes from bad to worse as rumour has it that she may well be about to break a manifesto promise and raise income tax by 2p. Do you have any confidence in the Chancellor? And here we go again, the one in, one out scheme. Migrants sent back to France under the deal are already trying to return to the UK because, well, the French won't provide housing, but we will. Yes, that's the reality of the one in, one out policy, deported on Monday, back on Friday. And another government U-turn as Labour rolls back on its decision to stop Gazan students from bringing dependents with them. I'm not saying they shouldn't be helped, but should our generosity extend to their family members as well? And is it time to scrap the Motability scheme? Well, Reform MP Lee Anderson has a suggestion. Bring back the Inver car. What do you make of that? Right, let's cross live now to Westminster to get the latest from our political editor, Christopher Hope. Christopher, we've had quite a bit of breaking news in. What has developed? What more can you tell us?
Well, as you can see behind me, night has fallen on Westminster, and it appears that we are drawing a line under this 24 hours of flurry about Rachel Reeves and her private arrangements to lease out her family home in Dulwich. You remember how the Daily Mail put on their front page last night the revelations that she hadn't got a correct licence to let out that property since she started letting it in July 2024, when she moved, of course, into number 11 Downing Street as the Chancellor. It now turns out, while the Chancellor was cleared last night by Laurie Magnus, who is the ethics czar for the Prime Minister, and an apology elicited from Rachel Reeves, there's a huge twist this afternoon in the afternoon briefing with the PM's deputy official spokesman, who told us that new emails had come to light. They've been submitted by Rachel Reeves to Laurie Magnus and the Prime Minister to review, and we weren't sure where that would go, but the PM did have full confidence in Rachel Reeves. You're seeing now on screen those emails. They've dropped in the past 10 minutes. They've been redacted, blacked out, I should say, to remove any personal indicators. And what they show to us is this, that Rachel Reeves said in a letter to Keir Starmer, I'm reading now, having just received it, that her husband, Nick Joycey, who's a senior civil servant, had found the correspondence confirming that on July 17th, 2024, the letting agent that they used in Dulwich had said to Nick Joycey that a selected licence would be required, and agreed that the agency would apply for the licence on their behalf. That's a crucial point, on their behalf, and that means that it was down to the agent to apply. They didn't apply, it seems. We've seen a separate statement from the agent later on today, and therefore, and we're told because of a member of staff of the agency left, that application was never made. So it looks like the Chancellor there is off the hook. A very difficult and damaging 24 hours, I think, for her, because it does show that she, for whatever reason, it is down to the landlord to apply for the correct licensing. It didn't happen. Of course, she can reasonably blame the estate agency, but she didn't check up on that, and she probably should have done. So it's on her, but it looks like she's off the hook for now.
All right, Christopher Hope, thank you very much. All right, so what are your thoughts? GBNews.com/your say. Were you slightly hoping that perhaps it was on her and that she was at fault? Were you hoping to get rid of the Chancellor? Could that have been the straw that broke the camel's back? Or does it kind of demonstrate how difficult it is for landlords and, of course, even those who are agents who should know better for all these different laws that are coming in? Well, let's get the thoughts of my panel, Kelvin McKenzie and also Stuart Fawcett. Kelvin, I'll start with you.
Well, I'm a landlord myself, so I know that you have, and thanks mainly to the socialist mob, that there is a cascade of issues that you face, and in the end of the day, it is down to you. So the fact that this was a hopeless estate agent, that's one shoe to drop. The other shoe to drop is that, unfortunately, she or her husband or somebody in the family has to keep track of what is happening, and so there's all kinds of aspects. You've got to make sure your gas is right, and you've got to make the terms are right on your things, and now you've got to have licences according to Labour-run Southwark Council, and also I think Labour-run Leeds Council, which of course is 10 days ago. She was congratulating them for introducing the licence. So these are responsibilities. Now, I totally accept that you're a busy person. I mean, she's spending every waking hour trying to work out ways of making us poorer. So it's not easy for her, but however, it's her responsibility, as it would be mine. And so she would normally, were it not for a Labour-run council, I think, be in some degree of difficulty on how much of a, quotes, fine, unquotes, or criminal action might be taken against her, but that's not going to happen from anybody who knows Labour-run Southwark Council, knowing that, honestly, if you think the current Labour set-up in Parliament is left, have a look at Southwark, which is a shocking pit of lefty.
Oh, what about Ilford South? I'm thinking of Jazz Athwell, the biggest landlord in the Commons, who had 15 properties. He introduced a licensing scheme when he was a councillor, and it turned out that 7 out of his 15 properties were not, he hadn't paid the licence for, and he was exposed to being a very dodgy landlord on Panorama, and nothing happened to him at all. He's still, and maybe he's fixed things up, but, he was on Panorama because of how bad his properties were. Stuart, what are your thoughts on all of this?
So, just to come back on your points about properties and selective licensing, I think the reason that those things have been brought into place is because there is a requirement for them. I don't think they came along because every single landlord was perhaps as good as you are, Kelvin.
Quite right, sir.
Making sure that
get my tenants on. They love me. They love me.
And I'm sure that you are the model landlord there, and I don't doubt the integrity in that. But there was evidence.
And one day, when you have enough money, you might become one as well.
Well, we'll have to see if that even gets that far.
Well, you have to get rid of Labour first, won't you?
Well, I don't know about that. We'll come on to the economic prospects of different governments in a minute. But in terms of the licences, these are selective licences that are by certain local authorities.
Mostly Labour.
Because there's been, in certain areas, unscrupulous dealings with certain landlords not having houses to a rentable standard, a habitable standard.
Like Jazz Athwell, Labour MP for Ilford.
I'm not arguing with that. There was a whole report on that one. But obviously, on tonight, we are naturally talking about Rachel Reeves renting a property because she obviously now lives in number 11, which there are many people who are very pleased about that. And she naturally rented her property out.
When you say they're very pleased, do you mean they're pleased because she's not living in Dulwich?
Well, there's a lot of people that wanted Rachel Reeves to be the Chancellor, and I'm one of them, which is why I'm here tonight.
I'm sure I don't expect
there's a large fan club on the panel, but there is at least one.
So you'll be happy if there's a potential of 2p rise in income tax if she's to break a manifesto promise, because that's one of the things that she promised, swore blind, that she wouldn't do.
Well, we'll come back to the situation with Rachel Reeves and selective licensing.
Well, no, we'll come back to
that. But on this particular case with tax rises, the simple fact is at the moment we don't know exactly what is going to be in that budget. There is a lot of subjective or argument about what there may and may not be. What we do know is that GDP as a proportion, debt as a proportion of GDP is the highest it has ever been under any government taking over. When George Osborne took the reins to the Treasury, it was 65%. Now it's 97%. We're in a real tough spot economically. So when I looked at coming on the show earlier, and I thought, crikey, you know, look at what we have here, a Chancellor that actually is taking it on, a really unenviable position, and there were questions being raised about the tenability of her position. I did think, well, who else could do that job? Who else could really take on that challenge with that humility? So when we talk about things like a potential of a 2p tax rise, I do have to look at all the information that's on the table, which is we've had 15 years of real stagnation in our economy that has also been starved of a lot of investment. And actually the decision that this Chancellor has taken is to make investment in the economy, in such things as making greater... So if you had a business, for example, and you were faced with this debt, at nearly 100% of the debt you're in,
yes,
would the situation
The first thing they do is cut costs, actually.
Well,
I know because I've run businesses
so
both on the up, on the down.
But I know, and I see what you mean, but you can't cut costs all the way to growth. The Conservatives will often say you can't cut your way to growth, and I don't disagree with that.
But they haven't cut anything. They haven't cut anything. They haven't even managed to cut welfare, despite their massive Commons majority. So they haven't managed to cut anything, Kelvin.
They can't get... let's be honest about it. They can't get a cut through the collection of lefties in the Labour Party, and you know that, and I don't know how you stand on whether you should cut welfare or not, but they can't do it. So the alternative to that actually is what? Unfortunately, the alternative is actually a tax rise. I have never seen so many kite flying by the Treasury or whoever, or their mates or something like that, or Mr. Bell or whatever, whoever it is. I think that has been enormously damaging. Every 5 seconds, somebody is saying, we're going to tax this, we're going to tax that. The only joy I'm getting out at the moment is having seen... I used to live in Dulwich myself, Court Lane for anybody who lives around that way, and I went to our lanes, paid for by London Borough of Southwark, by the way. And the issue there is that she lives in a 4-bedroomed, rather nice house. I'm in favour of those, right, by the way. The funny thing is, if she's going to introduce a mansion tax, of course, she's going to be one of those that are paying it. So that is the only thing that has cheered me up so far.
But I don't think
at
any point in her tenure has the Chancellor ever said that she should be excused from the rules.
No, but the idea...
Today, I think the argument is that she's been
it just cheered me up. I'm sure in your £2 million
there's no schadenfreude for me, but there is something that I am really worried about, which is tax rises. And the worst tax that I have experienced has been the tax that Liz Truss's budget put on people like me.
Well, I don't think that, honestly, we're past all that.
We're not
It was
past
a nightmare.
All that.
It was a nightmare time.
Absolutely.
And we are nowhere near the nightmare that we face under this woman.
We are still feeling the effects of. Every time you and I spend money, the effect of inflation on everything we spend...
What business did you run?
And also...
Tell me, you said you ran a business. What business did you run?
I run a hospitality and leisure business. So every time that I bought stock, if inflation was going up, it was more expensive. And I had to pass that on to the consumer. If I then wanted to buy anything like an asset, the interest rates at the bank would have been more expensive. I have to pass that on to the consumer. And that was caused by the run on the banks because our credit rating as a country had been absolutely toppled by the decisions that Liz Truss and her Chancellor made.
Do you think this is getting better under this lot, do you?
We've had... Sorry, Nana.
Do you think this is getting better under this?
This is going to be a long turnaround.
No, but
no one has said...
You're not going to get a long turnaround.
Nobody has said we're going to get an overnight change in our economic prospects. But I'll tell you what has happened. The Chancellor, as the Chief Financial Officer of Great Britain, has been going abroad to sell stock. And what she hasn't been doing is...
abroad to beg for money.
Not at all, but we need investment.
Let me finish now. She went to China for £600,000 over 5 years. That is nothing. She went to Saudi Arabia...
6 million.
Well, no, it was 600,000. It wasn't 6 million. It was or maybe 600 million, maybe. But again, that's not actually that much, is it? Let's be fair. Over 5 years.
But it's better than what we had before.
She's been to the oil-rich countries with the begging bowl as well, which, to be frank, with all their human rights records and the so-called socialist-type leftist ideologues, I'm surprised that would be allowed. Working with China, working with, Saudi and all those kind of oil-rich countries when we're bringing in net zero.
we've got to do business as a country.
China, or they've got all the.
Well, let's talk about the economics.
Well, just,
Great Britain has to be a much better trading element.
We have to work harder. We have to work harder.
But everyone can take a role in that one. But at the minute, what we need to do that is to get investment, because at the moment, investment is flatlining, and we need to get our economy producing more. Productivity has flatlined. The only way we can get growth in this country and make that ceiling much higher from debt to
get rid of Labour
is growth.
Get rid of Labour would be a help. Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
I don't disagree. We don't work hard enough in our country, right? There's a lot of people walking around saying either they're not very well or they're talking about work-life balance. And I, by the way, blame the bosses in that respect by not setting a leadership role within their companies and always indulging their workforce in some rather bizarre way when they come knocking at the door. South Cambridge comes to mind, which I imagine that Labour actually don't endorse. They don't endorse. Yeah. No, there's a Lib Dem government, a Lib Dem. But we have to work harder, and we have to be smarter. And we had the role to ourselves in the 60s and the 70s and perhaps even the 80s, right? And right now, the whole of Asia and the whole of the world outside Western Europe is eating our lunch. We have to do something about it. I don't believe that Rachel Reeves has the answer, but I do fear that whatever happens on November the 26th will be disastrous for our country, as was the same budget last year.
All right, well, listen, coming up, another government U-turn as Labour rolls back on its decision to stop Gazan students from bringing family members with them. Do not go anywhere.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show. It's not a bad brand. Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back, 17 minutes after 6 o'clock. This is Dewbs and Co with me, Nana Akweer, keeping me company until 7, Kelvin McKenzie and also Stuart Fawcett. Now, next up, the government. In a government U-turn, the dependents of some Gazan students will now be allowed to join them in the UK. The Department for Education has confirmed that eligible Gazan PhD and master's students on fully funded scholarships can now bring their partners and children with them. Is this another softening of Britain's borders? Right, I'll start with you, Stuart.
I want to know that these people have been fully vetted when they come to the UK, so that we know exactly who we're letting in. I'm not clear on exactly why the full policy is and why they're being allowed in, but I don't think simply to say they should not come in is necessarily fair. I think we need to look at and make sure they've been fully vetted. We know the issues in Gaza and about the extremism that takes place there in the case of their government, but it's not fair to say every single person from there is enfranchised in that extremism. So we need to make sure they're vetted and that when they come here, there's a very clear understanding that any behaviour that represents any extremism like that will not be tolerated.
Well, they'll hide it. If someone's an extremist, they're not going to say, hey, I'm an extremist.
Well, I don't know.
They'll hide it.
They can be monitored a lot more closely. That's very possible.
So but we do know that in some of the schools, they're indoctrinated to hate Jewish people. Now, I know this. They have puzzles of, how, Jews being murdered and all sorts, and that they are. We know
truly awful.
This is not,
yeah, absolutely.
This is not me making it up. Yep. So we know that, and that would start from very early. So are we not inviting a culture of this into our country knowingly? And I know there's a war there, but do you not think that knowingly we need to be a bit more cautious? And they can bring family members as well.
I think we should be cautious, but that doesn't mean to say we need to object blindly. You are right. A lot of the education material, sometimes even provided with funding through UNRWA, has some really awful and objectionable things that I've seen for myself, and that is very worrying that these children are indoctrinated without choice.
All right, Kelvin McKenzie.
Well, actually, I think we can allow some in. I'm not saying we should allow many in, and I'm not even sure why we just don't cap it. If they're funded, and we literally allow 10 in, they have had a shocking war, and I'd like to believe that we would do the same thing for the Ukrainians. I recognise that they come from an untrustworthy background, and many of them are anti-Semitic to their core, but we can surely just check. If we said, 10 of you can come in here, and we're going to check you 10 out, and we're going to do our best to hope that you aren't as vile as some of your people back home. But I think for what's happened to them, and perhaps they will then go back to their country. Now, this is a rather strange hope. They go back to their country and say, actually, the West is not a bad place and are much more outward going than we are towards them. But look, I recognise that if you're we're short of money, and in some way or another we'll end up subsidising their lives here. I recognise that there is an argument to say on the financial side we shouldn't do it. But actually, on the humanity side, I think if we kept it down to 10, I don't see anything wrong in that.
What about our relationship with Israel? Do we need to contemplate what that might do? Because
I don't think the Israelis didn't want that war. They were bombed into that war, and the fact is that they have been treated and are continued to be treated vilely in the whole of the Middle East.
I'm pleased you said that, Kelvin, because I think that is very true. That they've had a really unfair time on this one. October the 7th was horrific. There was a concentrated number of terrorists that decided to kill Jews because they've been indoctrinated in terrorism. That is completely unacceptable. But I don't think for 1 second Israel would have an objection to trying to find any method to try and bring some peaceful forward planning and involve the UK education system in that in a responsible way.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. So there's a strange coming together on that argument.
Yes, an agreement.
That wasn't what you were expecting, was it?
Well, I don't know what I think, though, because I personally sort of think that if they are coming to this country, they should have some maybe citizenship lessons and some lessons about this country so they understand the environment. I'd like all migrants to have that, even where we're talking about putting migrants in army barracks and things like that. If they come via dinghy and we're putting them in barracks, I would make these barracks be working places where they have to look after themselves there. There'll be a kitchen where they'll do their cooking and so on and so forth. There wouldn't be all this help coming out and everything. They would be detained and they would be put into some sort of educational programme so they could learn about this country whilst we're processing them to see...
But isn't there a slight difference? I mean, these people are going back. The Gazans are going back. Right, unfortunately, taking your point, right, you're not suggesting someone were going to stay.
No, well, I don't know. Some of the... You know how it is in this country.
Yeah,
we do this all the time. We say, oh, yes, come in, bring your family. And I mean, is there a limit to the number of family? Bring your family, then it's aunts, cousins, a second cousin removed, so on and so forth.
I think Labour did stop that, though, you know, and so I would hope that...
I think there's clear expectations in this policy set out, what the length of stay and the return. That it is obviously a large ask to expect people to have that separation from their family at this time, but actually I think there's a lot of cause for hope to say these people on their return, as you say, Nana, can go back and say these people who were telling us to commit these awful acts were wrong. You know, the values of this nation are something that can be recognised and can be stood by. So I think there is a lot of reason for hope in that scheme there. But as I said earlier, I think these people should be vetted.
I mean, the other way to look at it is actually just to say you're coming here for a PhD or a master's. Actually, I tell you what, you are going to be single. Right? We're just going to take single people, and therefore we don't have the problem of having to take families. After all, if it's a master's, there could be people literally 20, 22, 23, 24, and if it's a PhD, probably 24, 25, 26. Why we have to see, and I see there's one particular case, there's a lady coming over here, she's got 3 kids, right? I know they have their children younger in Gaza than probably in this country, but so why don't we just choose single people?
Because we already have a problem with people who come here legally as students who overstay, so it'll be interesting to see how this one pans out. But coming up, migrants sent to France under the one-in, one-out scheme are already trying to return to Britain because France won't put them up in houses. Yeah, what a disaster.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you are looking to escape the very mixed weather across the UK, well, it's going to also be mixed across much of the Mediterranean. Not everywhere. We are going to see some fine weather on Friday through parts of Greece, particularly the Greek islands. But we've got this area of low pressure bringing some heavy rain to southern Italy, showers to northern Italy as well. Mostly fine to eastern Spain for now, but some wet and windy conditions across Portugal, and they spread east, albeit slowly, through the weekend and early next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, it's going to be another blustery day, some quite heavy showers at times. Some of these could bring some hail and thunder. And even into this evening, it's going to remain fairly unsettled, all thanks to low pressure situated out to the west, bringing in some quite blustery winds and also some heavy outbreaks of rain. This will clear Northern Ireland through the first part of the evening and eventually spread its way eastwards overnight, though it does clear fairly quickly, so by the time we reach the morning, it should be mostly dry. Plenty of clear skies, though it is going to be quite blustery still by the time we reach the morning, but that does also keep temperatures up, most towns and cities around the low double digits. So a milder start as we head into tomorrow, but I'm afraid it's not going to remain completely dry. There will be thicker areas of clouds starting to push up from the south, moving into the southeast. This will eventually bring in some showers. Some showery outbreaks already across western areas of Wales, also northwest England. These too could be quite heavy and blustery at times. A few more clearer skies across the far north of Scotland. And for all, it is set to be an unsettled end to the week. Some very heavy showers, in fact, eventually pushing into parts of Wales, Wales, parts of southwest England. These could bring some quite heavy and intense downpours at times, some hail and thunder, which could lead to a little bit of travel disruption. Also elsewhere, we can expect some heavy bands of showers too, possibly bringing some hail and thunder. And it's still going to be quite blustery, a chance we could see some coastal gales in some areas, but a milder day, so in any sheltered spots, feeling pleasant for the time of year, highs of 17 degrees. On Sunday, further showers. These too still could be quite heavy, particularly at times across northeastern areas of Scotland. Perhaps a little brighter by the afternoon across central and southern parts, still with a risk of showers, and it's still going to be quite blustery. And that remains the theme through Sunday and Monday, though from Monday onwards, things should start to feel that little bit milder.
Thank you so much for helping us to reach 8 million followers and subscribers across our social media channels. That's 8 million fearless Brits standing up for what really matters.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Major delays are impacting key travel routes this evening. On the M80 northbound near Junction 4A, drivers should proceed with caution due to heavy congestion. Lane closures on the A1M southbound at Junction 49 are causing significant delays. Travellers should also anticipate hour-and-a-half delays on the M6 southbound in Warrington. In Derbyshire, the A38 southbound faces 30-minute delays, while the M25 clockwise in Thurrock is experiencing 20-minute postponements. On the A31 eastbound in Dorset, expect a brief 10-minute delay. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
This is Dewbs and Co with me, Nana Acquare, keeping me company until 7. The former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and also Labour councillor Stuart Fawcett. Now, lots of you have been getting in touch with your thoughts on Rachel Reeves. George says, just because the letting agent screwed up the licence doesn't absolve you of responsibility. If the council had charged that, or her or her husband, they would be in court. Yeah, because not everyone gets out of that one. Christina said, if it was us, we would probably be told it's our responsibility to ensure the licence is in place. And David says, why do I smell a rat regarding this revelation that Rachel Reeves' estate agent screwed up? If this is the case, how many others have they missed? This is gross incompetence, and they should have their licence removed, or are they a convenient scapegoat? Interesting. Thank you for that. Keep them coming. gbnews.com/your say. Now, of course, here we go again. Migrants sent to France under the government's so-called one-in, one-out deal are already trying to come back. Yes, lawyers claim that the French authorities aren't providing housing, meaning many are simply heading straight back across the Channel. Now, it's yet another sign that the scheme isn't working as intended. We deport them, France won't look after them, and the boats just keep coming. The Home Office has insisted that it's all under control, but if people couldn't be sent out on Monday and then come back on Friday, you have to ask, who's really in charge of Britain's borders? Right, Kelvin Mackenzie.
Well, the funny thing is that when they come up with a one in, one out, it was the great slogan, and this was going to be the winning line, and it would replace smash the gangs, right? And now, one in, one out has now become, it's like a laughing stock. And this is the danger for politicians. When it becomes a gag or a one-liner that's used against you, you're done for. So I suggest that they move on from this and come up with another potty idea rather than deal with the substantive idea, which is actually stop all of these people coming in and actually face the issue that France actually, probably, if I was French, I'd probably feel like this, are not going to be helpful. They are trying to be either... They're quite clever. They've taken the money. Nothing seems to have happened. Everybody seems to be getting on rather well because, actually, in the end of the day, we need the French. If you take it from the Starmer position, we want to have better relations, then we won't be certainly starting to send boats over armed with people to force these boats back. As long as that does not happen, Starmer is done for at the polls. So the question for him is, what is it I'm going to do? Not come up with a slogan, smash the gangs, not come up with a slogan, one in, one out, actually come up with the goods, which is, I'm afraid we don't want these people. And actually, that's the end of it.
Well, we've seen it happen. Donald Trump has managed it. Unfortunately, one in, one out has become the hokey-cokey. You put one in, you do the hokey-cokey and you...
Well, I don't want the constant repetition, but I do sense your frustration there, Kelvin. I think it is absolutely on the nose with how people are feeling about this. I think the one-in, one-out system had potential to be a very good first step, but it certainly should not be the final step.
In what way? Sorry.
In what way? In which there is a slowing of the net gain of the amount of migration coming across the channel. But that needs to be absolutely doubled down on, because at present, if we want to say to these people, you should not be coming here, there needs to be a point of communication, of deterrent. And there is a problem with that at the minute. And as Kelvin has outlined, this goes to our relationship with France. And we've seen the Prime Minister showing leadership on the world stage in terms of foreign leadership with foreign leaders. But I think this needs a focus on domestic leadership now and about his relationship with the electorate.
Some might say that he's running away from domestic issues. Yes, of course, he has a job to be an ambassador, but he actually has like a foreign secretary to do a lot of those things. Some might look at that and say, you've got all these problems at home, why are you running off to Turkey, not Turkey, which is what he called it, and why are you doing all of this when...
Well, I will call it Turkey, where we sold the 20 aeroplanes.
Well, all I'm saying is Turkey.
I think you both raise a very fair point, definitely needed. And where that will come to impact is how we influence our counterparts in France to have a better point of contact and reception over there.
You know, with the best will in the world, and you know, I don't want to battle with France over anything. There is no power, central power, in France to negotiate with. Right? It's no good Macron saying anything because nobody takes any notice of him anymore and he's playing out his time. So we're done for. So I think Macron's got 2 more years. Well, 2 more years takes us up to 27, beginning of 28, in which case we've only got a year to go before there's an election here. So I absolutely believe that Starmer is totally done for. He can't do a deal. He can have a slogan, but he can't have any action. The funny thing about Starmer, he seems a lot more cheerful when he's wandering around foreign capitals than he ever does when he's when he's getting phone calls from Rachel Reeves apologising for something which she hasn't done. Right.
Well, I'm glad to hear that she hasn't done it.
Well, she didn't do it. Well, somebody didn't do it.
Certainly.
And in the end of the day, she wasn't in control of it. If you're a landlord, honestly, the stuff is coming at you left, right and centre. And it is your responsibility. And the funny thing is that when Starmer was DPP, of course, he was saying ignorance is no excuse of the law. And so... so he's surrounded. And her last line, I don't remember her last line last night. God knows why they come up with it. We're saying if you have any... This is to her Prime Minister next door. It said, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Well, thanks very much for that. And actually, the question that you really have is, why is it all the time, Rachel, that every time you do anything, it turns out to be somebody else's fault? So last time, do you remember on her Wikipedia that basically she was the CEO, she was the chief executive of NatWest, and the next minute she turned out to be somebody who was answering complaints from angry customers in Chesterfield, right? And so that turned out to be her aide's fault. This one turns out to be the estate agent's fault. God knows who she's going to blame for the budget.
Well, I think she was blaming Brexit a little while ago, wasn't she? Didn't she come back on?
I think she was blaming the poor Brexit deal.
Brexit, either way, Brexit deal, Brexit, whatever.
I think, well, the causal effect of Brexit was the deal that we had to have with the European Union,
yes,
which was pretty poor, you know, but actually... On the flip side of that one, the Chancellor has gone out worldwide and looked for other trading partners in terms of the United States. We've also got a great deal of outlook on the Commonwealth as well, which has, you know, a real promise for Great Britain in the future. But I do wonder on this situation today, as it now draws to a close with Rachel Reeves, who I think is a person of integrity, and why I was happy to come on this show tonight and talk about it, because I think it does raise the question of, yes, politicians should be held to high standards. I think we all accept that. Yep. But I think there should be an element of, you know, is there allowance for humanity in politics anymore?
Well, it depends if you allow humanity on the other side, doesn't it? Because if you look at Angela Rayner, she spent ages telling them, you should resign, you should resign, you should resign. So you'll be judged by the same bar.
I think you're right. I think at the moment the situation is that we've gone from one end of the situation when we looked at the COVID breach rules and lots of other integrity questions of the former government, which we could debate to the nth degree here tonight. And then that bar was selectively pushed much higher by this government. And there have been instances...
Do you think it was pushed higher? I mean, they kicked it off with Freebiegate. And, you know, all the freebies turned out...
Yeah, I mean, the whole of the cabinet being dressed by, I don't know, Topshop or something. And I thought they got away with that, actually, to be honest. I mean, if Freebiegate happened now, it would come damn close to forcing out a whole load of cabinet.
I can understand why people's discomfort with that, including myself. Yeah, I pay for my own clothes.
Yeah.
You know, I also feel...
Can I say it looks like it?
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment, Kelvin. perhaps we could swap tailors later, maybe. But no, on that instance, I get people's frustration with that. I think that's quite understandable. However, I also feel that these people are being looked at. This is Great Britain. We're on the world stage. We want people to look respectable. And, you know, actually, when you look at that, you do want them to be looking presentable and respectable. We're not going to... I don't think it's fair to say they aren't paid enough in order to do that. But I think that I understand people's feelings on that now, and that the bar should be high.
Well, it's not just that, though. I mean, let's go through Mike Ainsby, Tulip Sadiq, Rashanara Ali...
but what's the difference?
Mandelson...
But the difference with all of these has been that they have left their posts.
Yes, they've left, but that's all within the space of 14 months. And I can name a few others as well.
But so on this case now with Rachel Reeves...
Sorry, let me finish. If you're saying that the bar has been raised higher, I would disagree with that. I think they've lowered the bar.
I think the standard of tolerance bar has been taken much lower.
So social media has meant that everybody is entitled to a view, right? So in my days, in the old days, you know, if the Sun didn't publish it, then it wasn't happening, right? Now everybody has a view. So any time you aren't perfect, this is why we end up with so many numbskulls in politics, because anybody who's got anything about them is never going to go for this kind of scrutiny. And
it raises the question of, like, how many really talented people do we miss in politics because they potentially consider something like this?
Well, yeah, because who would want to go into it now knowing that every single moment, anything you've ever said online is scrutinised? Yeah. But, I mean, some of the things that some of the MPs say, for example, Wes Streeting, before he was an MP, talking about Jeanne Moire, about pushing her on a train tracks. And
who would know it now with Wes's performances?
Well, no, but even recently when he pretty much called anyone who supported Suzanne Hall a white supremacist. Really? And yeah, I mean, you know, so it's sort of... I sort of don't understand why the politicians have actually sunk to such low bars, you know, in terms of how they communicate and whether their levels of communication seem to be acceptable.
Yes, no, you wouldn't be a politician. I went to a council meeting. You're a Labour councillor, aren't you? Right. Yeah. I went to a council meeting, the first time I've been there, literally in 1,000 years, and I was astonished at how the Lib Dem leader. Right, this is Elmbridge Council, by the way, which is disappearing under the changes, was actually stopping a debate taking place because the Reform Council was about to say something, and the Lib Dem said, I think we'll have a vote on whether we want to stop this debate. This was a local council. So I wonder, the democracy is being lost, mainly because there's no scrutiny from the media. But at a national level, the scrutiny now is incredible. And actually, I'm very grateful that we finally fingered who was to blame over the Rachel Reeves episode, and it turns out to be an estate agent somewhere in Dulwich.
Well, sort of her as well, because I've been a landlord for almost 30 years as well, and I'm well aware that if I make a mistake, even if it's because the agent didn't tell me this, or, I mean, woe betide you if you don't get your gas safety certificate in, dear God, it's over.
That is true.
You know, and the EPC, which is the Energy Performance Certificate that you have.
I'm going to surprise you both now. I have also been a landlord.
Okay.
So I know about these struggles.
And the smoke alarm. What about the smoke alarm?
15 years ago.
15 years ago, it was so different. You didn't have to put the...
I had to have EPC in.
Yeah, but you didn't have to put this in a tenancy protection deposit scheme. You didn't have to do this and that. You probably got...
I did have to do this.
Well, you probably got the interest deducted from your profits. You don't get that now as a landlord. There literally is nothing. I don't know why anyone wants to be in it. And with the Renters Reform Act now passed, I think a lot of people will be out of it. But that's another one. We were discussing that at some point, because at some point they'll give us the date as to when that'll kick in. But stay tuned, because coming up, is it time to scrap the Motability scheme? Well, Reform UK MP Lee Anderson has a suggestion. Find out what that is after the break.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Dewbs and Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christys here. GBNews, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GBNews family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening, this is Dewbs and Co with me, Nana Akweer, keeping me company until 7, Calvin Mackenzie and also Stuart Fawcett. Right, well, let's move on to this one because I find this quite interesting. I don't know whether Lee Anderson is joking, but Reform UK's MP Lee Anderson has called for the return of the old blue three-wheelers, the Invercars. Do you remember that? Didn't they have one in Only Fools and Horses? That was a yellow one. These are three-wheelers. They were scrapped back in 1981 because they kept sort of rotating, so just going sideways, and they would replace the Motability scheme. Now, the Motability scheme allows certain welfare recipients to trade their benefits for a new car, but they must cover any additional costs themselves. And I think 1 in 5 of all the cars sold are now being bought through this scheme, and that is quite incredible because it costs Britain £3 billion a year. That's the cost last year. So is it time to scrap the Motability scheme? Right, well, let's come to you, Stuart.
I will admit to you, Nana, that I do think some of Lee Anderson's jokes are quite funny, but this isn't one of them. The Motability scheme fundamentally is a good scheme that achieves things for disabled people. And that scheme is subscribed to people on personal independence payment, and also the Armed Forces independence payment. So I do question whether I want to see disabled ex-servicemen who are eligible for this scheme to be put into a comic blue invalid car.
But you're going to the extremes, though, aren't you? So you're saying, the real extreme of this is there are 40,000 people currently who are claiming this, and the criticism is that it's people with minor ailments who are kind of, like things like anxiety, because you can claim PIP for anxiety now these days. So people with minor ailments and not real proper disabilities, because like proper, where you have one leg or where you literally physically can't move well, and that's the criticism.
I'll tell you a bit of a story here, because I've been a claimant of PIP, because I've been very ill after I left the services, and I was both physically and mentally ill. And I think we should say that mental illness does have impairments. But you don't always
Could you walk? Could you walk here and there and do things?
No, at the time I couldn't walk very well, but both of those things worked together in tandem. They were both linked.
Was it a mental thing, or was it?
Yeah, it was. I had an issue with my nerves.
Illness.
Yeah, I don't want to go too far into it, but they were.
Details.
No, they were both linked.
But that's I'm just clarifying.
But I think it is fair to say that certain mental illnesses do have an impairment. But where I think the issue is at the moment, legacy benefits. I've been through that testing process with what was not DLA, it was the Employment Support Allowance, sorry, and PIP. They when it was Maximus and Atos, they ran those criteria concurrently. So I wasn't able to access the job-seeking help that I needed to get onto with the Employment Support Allowance, but I was eligible for PIP. And I think this is where the issue has gone, because government at the time wanted to reduce the claimants on one particular benefit, and it was totally fine that they were on PIP, and it was a sort of look over here but not over there. So we've got a legacy issue of a lot of people probably on a benefit that isn't suitable for them to help them out in life.
Do you not think this is more to do with the fact that we've missed the face-to-face thing, so someone could just type it all out and you never actually get to see them?
No, and you've got quotes, influencers, aren't you, on TikTok and the like, who are actually explaining to you how to get through this and get your money and all the rest of it. The thing I totally buy, and I like the argument involving the disabled, our army veterans, and especially at the moment when we are wearing these. I mean, it's a massive point, and we don't make enough of our army veterans in our country. And if you want an indication of how to treat your vets, go to the US, right, where literally people would stand up and cheer on seeing them. And I must say that I came through both Waterloo and Paddington Station, and to see people in their fatigues, right, seeking money for this kind of thing, actually lifted my spirits, and I am sure I speak for, say, 97% of this country in that way. But on the question of Motability, you can end up with a BMW X5. Look, that's a £55,000, £65,000, £70,000 car. That is ridiculous. I think that actually we need to be tougher on it. We've got to accept that we're a country that can't perhaps afford £3 billion a year for Motability. I do know, because in my wider family there are people with challenges, that in fact a car of any kind is an absolute freedom for them, where normally their parents or their grandparents are having to drive them around. So I do accept there are some of that. I'm just saying, is £3 billion right? No, it isn't in this environment. We're going to have to cut it back, and I'm afraid you're going to have to go in a full Puma. You're not going to go in a BMW X5.
And I think that's reasonable, Calvin, because there's the other element that this is the pressure that it's putting on the Treasury is a lot of the other write-downs that are eligible if you actually have the car, rather than just a cost of PIP.
Correct. The insurance.
There are a lot of other pressures there, and what I don't want to do is demonise genuine disabled people who this does make a difference to their in life.
We would never do that, though. Because the whole idea of this is that people who have things like anxiety are able to get these, and claim this PIP, and then potentially able to get the Motability scooters. This is not about people who are genuinely in need, and this country is very caring to people in some respects, too much.
And the workplace will be better for them.
Well, absolutely. So this is not, and it's interesting that when you...
And the other racket that goes on there, so there's somebody... Look, we're just looking at the rackets on this, because we're trying to cut costs, right? Something which give the Labour Party no credit at all. They don't. It's a tax and spend business, right? They don't care, actually. So you get somebody who actually it can't get around very easily, fills in the forms rather nicely. Actually, it's their relatives who are driving around all day long, and occasionally, once a week, they take poor old Tom down to Sainsbury's, right? That's the racket on it. I'm not saying everybody's at it, but what we need to do is try and cut that out. We can't cut that out if there are clever people simply sitting on their laptop answering questions knowing that somebody is looking at... Look, I fear that we are in a world for the next 4 years where nothing gets cut back in this area. And we'll be discussing this in 2029 and not being surprised when eventually Labour get thrown out.
I'll just come back to you there, Kelvin, because it's interesting what you say about tax and spend. That is right. The government, and I think there's broadly reaching consensus that we can't spend money that we can't have. We can't take out borrowing for everyday spending. The borrowing conditions, the rules have changed a little bit more like if you have a business, i.e. if you're a construction company and you want to buy a new digger, that's going to be sort of more taken as asset funding, not an expenditure. So that has changed now in terms of how the government is spending its money, which is quite sensible and more in line with business terms. But just on what you're saying there about the scheme, I think the scheme does need to work more closely to the DWP and talk. I think they have shown that is beginning to happen. They have downgraded some of the
Can I ask you this, though? The first time that somebody goes to, I don't know, The Guardian and says, do you realise that I can't get in this Puma? Then all of a sudden, you know, there's a bunch of Labour MPs concerned about the fact they're all going to lose, that they're going to lose their seats to the Greens or some balmy Corbyn thing. But suddenly says, oh, we can't do this anymore, and we end up in exactly the same situation as we had with the 5 billion not being cut.
I think that is considered there's a balance here, isn't there? And the balance to pay is what the scheme costs people. But I know the scheme does have payments in place in order to make those vehicles available to those disabled people. So I think the risk of that is low.
All right, well, listen, lots of you have been getting in touch. On the one in, one out, Anne says, one in, one out was doomed from the beginning. Most normal folk like us could see this was going to happen from the start. Also, the traffickers were guaranteeing a free second pop if they got sent back. Why are top politicians so detached from the real world and common sense? Totally agree with you there. And Dennis C says, seems like the French have a deterrent for illegals. It's very clever. Just don't house them. They can stay in tents. Who would have thought of that? Exactly, very clever. Listen, that is it from me. Thank you very much to my panel, Calvin McKenzie. Calvin, thank you very much. And also to Stuart Fawcett for joining me. Thank you very much to Stuart. I'm back on the weekend. You know, my normal show 3 till 6. And stay tuned because up next, it's Nigel Farage.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, it's going to be another blustery day, some quite heavy showers at times. Some of these could bring some hail and thunder. And even into this evening, it's going to remain fairly unsettled, all thanks to low pressure situated out to the west, bringing in some quite blustery winds and also some heavy outbreaks of rain. This will clear Northern Ireland through the first part of the evening and eventually spread its way eastwards overnight. Though it does clear fairly quickly, so by the time we reach the morning, it should be mostly dry. Plenty of clear skies, though it is going to be quite blustery still by the time we reach the morning, but that does also keep temperatures up most towns and cities around the low double digits. So a milder start as we head into tomorrow, but I'm afraid it's not going to remain completely dry. There will be thicker areas of clouds starting to push up from the south, moving into the southeast. This will eventually bring in some showers. Some showery outbreaks already across western areas of Wales, also northwest England. These too could be quite heavy and blustery at times. A few more clearer skies across the far north of Scotland. And for all, it is set to be an unsettled end to the week. Some very heavy showers, in fact, eventually pushing into parts of Wales, parts of southwest England. These could bring some quite heavy and intense downpours at times, some hail and thunder, which could lead to a little bit of travel disruption. Also elsewhere, we can expect some heavy bands of showers too, possibly bringing some hail and thunder. And it's still going to be quite blustery, a chance we could see some coastal gales in some areas, but a milder day, so in any sheltered spots, feeling pleasant for the time of year, highs of 17 degrees. On Sunday, further showers. These too still could be quite heavy, particularly at times across northeastern areas of Scotland. Perhaps a little brighter by the afternoon across central and southern parts, still with a risk of showers, and it's still going to be quite blustery. And that remains the theme through Sunday and Monday, though from Monday onwards things should start to feel that little bit milder.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the UK. We're truly humbled, and we couldn't have done it without you.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A9 at Crossgates has northbound restrictions due to a road incident. Drivers should expect longer travel times. In Cambridgeshire, there's a 20-minute delay on the M11 southbound between junctions 10 and 9 due to congestion, which should improve soon. In Surrey, a broken-down vehicle on the M3 westbound between junctions 2 and 3 closes one lane. Warrington faces a 50-minute delay on the M6 southbound between junctions 23 and 21. And on the trains, the Gatwick Express is not running between London Victoria and Brighton, and London Overground trains are suspended between Gospel Oak and Barking Riverside. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you can become our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps 4, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Well, good evening. Do you know, not a day goes by when we don't see a story about somebody who's come into the country either in the back of a lorry or on a boat committing some heinous crime, be it sexual assault, be it rape, be it murder. And I just wonder, when is enough enough? And we're going to have today with us in the studio an independent counsellor from Epping, which of course has been right at the centre of all of this, not just the sexual assault of a 14-year-old girl, but of course Kabatu then being accidentally released from prison. I'm also going to talk tonight about net zero. Really interesting that Bill Gates, of all people today, has said that global warming is not going to mean the end of the world, and what we simply need to do is adjust and adapt to it. And I just wonder whether perhaps we're beginning to change our thoughts as a nation, as a Western world, on not just on net zero, but actually on what we're doing in the name of net zero, because I've always thought that it's making us much, much poorer. Now, joining me on the panel tonight, along with the independent counsellor from Epping, I'm going to have John McTernan, former Tony Blair advisor, and we've got a newbie I've got a newbie on tonight. Well, he's not that new, really. But Michael Gove, or as I may now have to call him, my noble Lord Gove, will be on the panel this evening. He's going to stay for the last bit. I'm going to do a Talking Pints with Michael about his life, his ups and downs, his reputation in politics for being treacherous. Aren't they awful to you, Michael, sometimes? and you know, it's going to be a great chat. So stay with us for the hour. But before all of that, let's go to the news with Sam Francis.
Nigel, thank you. Live from London, we're going to bring in our royal correspondent Cameron Walker, in fact, for an update just breaking regarding Prince Andrew. Let's cross live now to Cameron Walker.
Sam, thank you. In the last few moments, we have received a significant statement from Buckingham Palace, and it reads the following. His Majesty has today initiated a formal process to remove the style